I'd like to welcome you all to this virtual Chief Officers Employment Panel meeting. Can I remind you all attendees to turn their mobile phones off? We don't want the vibrating phones coming through the presentations. Can I ask all those present to introduce themselves if they want to come in through the debate, if possible? And can I also refer members and officers to the published protocols for holding virtual meetings at Harrow Council, noting the following in particular. Members to ensure they have their videos on at all times and microphones on mute unless speaking. If someone wishes to speak, could I use the hand function and we'll call everyone in at that time. In case of a technical problem, the meeting may adjourn until the issue is resolved. If the technical problem persists and the meeting is incorrect, the meeting will be abandoned and rearranged for later dates. And just so you're aware, reminder, the meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be available on the website in due course. So if we move to item 1, membership, the membership is published on the agenda. So we move to item 2. Are there any declarations of interest? I don't see any hands raised. Number 3 is minutes. So can I ask whether the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of May are agreed? Agreed? I can see nods in the section. Thank you. So that now moves. So I didn't do apologies for absence. We've had an apology from Paul Hewitt as corporate director. He's taken his well-earned break. So we have Peter Tully doing the presentation on item number 6. So item 4 is the post of Head of Change and Flexible Future. Did you want to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're delighted to introduce the report. This is a request to actually produce a new post at D1 level, and it comes to the Chief Officer's Employment Panel because the D1 salary straddles the 100,000 mark. The post is to do 2 things. First of all, to lead the introduction of flexible futures. So, as you know, there is a programme ongoing at this moment in time, and the post will head up the programme officers that are undertaking the introduction of flexible futures as we move towards forward drive and the introduction of agile way of working. And then secondly, the post will augment and bring in further governance around project management, and will run the project management office and the governance associated with that. Flexible futures is obviously very important for the council, and it's critically important that we get the introduction of agile right. There's a massive change programme that has started and is ongoing and will be going on for another 18 months to 2 years. And as several members of the committee will know, that are on overview and scrutiny and other panels, the introduction and strengthening of governance around project management is seen as a critical requirement for the council going forward. So this role will in effect do 2 very important things, very important to the future of the council. It was evaluated at a D1 role. And as I say, that then saddles the £100,000 mark, and hence it is here. Now, because Flexible Futures has actually already started and has been going on for a while, the Head of Change and Business Transformation role has actually been acting up, or has been undertaking the role on an additional basis and has been paid an honorarium for doing so. So in going forward, this role, which will only be for 2 years and then will be reviewed, will in effect take over that role as well. And hence, therefore, the cost for this role is only the additionality between what is an already established post at MG level and that to a D1, so around about 18,000 a year for the 2 years. The funding for that was already put into the modernisation transformation budget, which was agreed at Cabinet some while back. Just to note, as I say, the role is for 2 years and then it would be re-evaluated because one would presume by that time we'll have got agile and flexible futures in, although of course project management will be ongoing and therefore the PMO part of the role will continue after that. So that's just a brief introduction to the role. Of course, delighted to take any questions the committee has.
I had a few, but is there any questions? No, the only question, I said that and some two hands went up. Who went up first? Let's check. Oh, Paul, you just picked Varsha.
I was just wondering if there was an org chart for this department now, because we talk about a lot of these different roles, and I'm still not entirely sure now how many people there are at different levels.
So within the what's it? Well, it's page 9, Paul, of my copy of the report. I think it's the same report. There is a list of different roles that the Flexible Futures is either directly or indirectly managing, because it's program management.
I think I'm comfortable what's below. What I don't understand is how many directors you have at different. So you have a director of IT, you have a director of HR. It's kind of that level where this sits that just makes me nervous about this post.
So I have the Director of Finance, I have Director of Legal, Monitoring Officer, I have the Director of IT, and I have the Director of HR, and then I have, so they're at D2, D3 levels, and then I have 2 heads of roles, one of which is the head of Customer Services, who will also be taking on the whole service modernisation reviews pieces. And I then would have this role as well. Now, those 2 roles are both at subject to the agreement of the committee at this moment in time. For this role, those 2 roles are at D1 level.
So just to be clear, you have 4 people at D2, and this will be a 5th person at D1.
So I have 4 people at D2, D3, and I would then, after this, have 2 people at D1 as well. So 6 roles in totality report directly to me.
I mean, look, my concern, I don't want to micromanage a department. I'm not sure that's my job, but my concern is we are overloading the resources department with directors at a time when, we're not delivering some of the core services to the level people would want across the board. And I'm just not comfortable. Albeit I accept that this changes, it's £18,000 different to the management structure. I'm just not comfortable with the management structure.
I'm not quite sure how I can help you with that one. This role is critical, as I said, for the 2 different requirements that I laid out before. It has been job evaluated and came out as a D1 role. Therefore, I'm not quite sure what I can say that would bring any light upon your question there. If we don't go ahead with this role, maybe that's probably something that would be useful to If we don't go ahead with this role, what would I need to do? Then I would need to split up the roles and take more of the tasks onto myself. I presume I would have to do so. It would not be particularly efficient and effective. As you say, I already have a fair, we're intimating already have a fair span of control anyway, so it would be difficult for me to take on the additionality to the tasks. The person themselves could go back to the head of PMO role alone. Flexible Futures would be more difficult to implement. If it could be implemented as well, we would lose that senior input into it, and I think it would be a difficulty for the organisation. I'm not sure whether 18,000 over 2 years, so 18,000 a year over 2 years, is going to make an awful lot of difference to trying to bring in other people in other areas. If you were looking to make additional, suggesting that we use the money to pay for additional people in other areas, 18,000 for 2 years is not going to make an awful lot of difference there. I'm not sure if that's answered the question, but can it help?
I suppose, just from my point of view, obviously, come next May, this might be a discussion we're having around the budget for that area. But beyond that, just in terms of, this is a fixed term, will this be a fixed term contract that we're?
Yes, fixed term contract, yeah, 2 years.
I think we're straying into a wider discussion around the number of people at a senior level. I think this one is to do the IT change and program change, and the assessment has come back that it's a D1. It's just because the top level at that scale is £754 over the 100,000. It doesn't mean they're beyond that level to start with. So just as a query, Charlie, before the other people come in for questions, would they start on the bottom of the structure anyway? D1.
So
it starts at the top.
I think they will be starting under the £100,000 level, put it like that.
Under. That's what,
Yes.
yeah. So it starts, the D1 structure starts at about 85,000.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
So they wouldn't actually get to the over the 100,000.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on, of course, the interviews, because there is a ring-fenced candidate. Sorry, we're getting into other land, which of course is head of paid service, but there is a ring-fenced candidate in the head of change at this moment in time. There may well be other candidates for it. It depends on the level of experience that the person that would be chosen comes to the role as to what they would be appointed at. I doubt it's going to be more than 100,000, but simply because it could be, it is here in front of the committee.
And is the 18,000 based on it being at the bottom of the salary range, or in the midpoint, or at the top?
I honestly can't remember. So it's 85, 95. I think that's just over the 100,000. That's probably the maximum that it could be.
Is that where you get the 18,000? So is the 18,000 assuming you're paying 85,000? And if you're paying more because they're higher up on the scale, would the 18,000 be higher?
It's the difference between an MG4 and the potential level that we would be paying, which I can find out what an MG4 is at this moment in time, if you give me a minute or two.
It's about 78.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the questions on this one? We've got Varsha, Marilyn, then Stephen. So Varsha, do you want to come in first?
Yeah, I just wanted to find out what timescale you're looking at. And you said it's a head position, but like we've just alluded to, it sounds like a divisional director role. So maybe is that the title we're going to give, or whatever, when the person is interviewed, whatever. Paul Osborne seems to be very confident that he's going to be in charge in May. Let's, the jury's out on that. So, let's see what happens. But timelines, when do you expect this person to be kind of in the role, or whatever, what sort of you're looking at, because we've already started the work. So what is that anticipation? And I know that Paul doesn't like this area of work anyway. That's probably why he's alluding to all of this.
Thank you. So just to say that the post is head of change and flexible futures, not divisional directors. The head of director of HR may wish to comment on this one, but we have a difficult structure, you might say, about what is a divisional director or not. It's not a title that is specifically recognised at this moment in time. D1s can be heads of services as well as divisional directors. This is at the head of level. As I said, I do have another D1 who is also a head of at this moment in time. That's not changing. They were staying the head of. So it is a head of level, as distinct from being called a divisional director post. So the person who's in at this moment is seconded into, if you like, because of the emergency that the pandemic, we had to get someone in, and the current head of change was the most ideal candidate, has done some work like this before. And is being paid at this moment in time an honorarium just to do the work, would continue until the person is appointed. Now, if that person, so if the head of change, current head of change, gets appointed into the role after the interviews, then it would be simply switching from one to the other, so it would be almost immediate. And the interviews are arranged, subject to approval by this committee for the post, for 2 and a bit weeks' time. So it would be directly after that. If that person is not appointed, then we're only going internally at this moment in time, so one presumes the internal candidate would be available fairly quickly, and then I would expect him to fill it within a few weeks, maybe a month at the most. But just to say, the post will be continued to be fulfilled by the current person that's in it, who is the head of change, acting up on an honorarium.
Marilyn.
Yes, thanks very much. I don't think it's for any other member of the committee to presuppose what another member, in this case, Councillor Osborne, actually what his motives are for saying what he's saying. And actually, I don't think it's really relevant to comment on that, other than just to make snide comments. What I do think, though, is that I'm uncomfortable with this. I read all the documents that we were sent. I've given it a lot of thought, and I just think we're building such a massive empire here with so many people and costing us so much money. As a matter of principle, I can't see why we haven't got the capacity to deal with this, as things stand. I'm not happy about it. I understand the differential, but there are other costs, although this is fixed term, that go along with employing people. I just think that if you spoke to the average person in the street and they could hear what I'm saying or anything saying here, I think they would all agree that this massive empire that has been built up under this administration is very top heavy, and it's inappropriate, and I shan't be supporting it. I hope that's clear enough.
I think that's more of a question to me, Marilyn, than Charlie, and I can answer it as well, because the programme was asked to be delivered under the IT programme.
And frankly, I despair.
Oh, that's all right if you want to do that, but the fact remains that it was asked to put something in, and the introduction of the IT and change of working needs those people with the capability of doing it. You can't just drag someone off the street to do it. You need someone of quite high experience, and that does come with a cost involved. If we was to do it through an external partner, or that like some councils have done, it is significantly more to do so through the temporary arrangements they bring in through the agencies. These are sort of quite very skilled people, and it isn't something that's going to be in there permanently. It's to make sure the programme moves forward properly. We could do it if we wanted to on a shoestring and just mess around with it all and spend years trying to correct it, like we had to do when we took the council back in 2010. But anyway, Stephen, you have your hand up.
Yes. That's what I mean by comment.
Sorry, yes. Thank you very much. What I wanted to know really was, obviously we are some way through this programme already. If this role is so crucial, why are we only looking to set it up now rather than at the beginning of the process?
Do you want me to take that, Chair?
Yes, please, Charlie. I think that's one for you.
No, no problem. I tried to explain that within the document, Councillor Green. So if you look at changes to current role and recruitment portion of the document, the actual work started lower level, but it did start at the beginning of the pandemic, because the run-ins for actually getting agile is a considerable amount of time. Frankly, at that time, we were stretched left, right and centre, and to actually try and get a chief officer's employment panel arranged, let alone the job evaluation done and all the other work that it takes to make sure that a role is correctly evaluated, put in the right place, etc., was frankly just too much at that time. So we agreed with the head of paid service that we would just uplift someone that did have experience of doing this, which is the head of change and transformation at this moment in time, and give him the chance to prove himself and to also start the work going, which is what we did. So that was the beginning of it. Then once the pandemic was starting to, well, last year was starting to ebb and flow, then we started to move forward on getting the budget set aside for the whole of the modernisation, which of course went to Cabinet not that long ago, getting this job evaluated, having written the job description and making sure that we had the right level in line, and then arranging for this chief officer panel to do. That takes some time to manage in itself, almost 6 months worth of preparation as well. Of course, we then had the second half of the pandemic that hit us at the beginning of the year, so things slowed down again, and hence we are where we are. So if you wish to blame something for taking this amount of time, Councillor, blame the pandemic. If you wish to say, well, what did that make us different? Well, we're very lucky to have someone that had the experience in the organisation to head up the position at that time and was willing to do so.
Thank you very much. I mean, I asked because one of the results is because obviously a few months ago the cabinet passed the accommodation strategy on the strength of the existing work, and obviously when a new person comes in, they're going to want to sort of put their stamp on things, look at things, see how things might go. But it seems like we're boxing them in a bit, because you were asking them to implement decisions that have already been made, rather than giving this person input into those decisions so they can make the role their own. So what freedom will this person who takes this role, what freedom will they have to really develop this project, and if any changes need to be made to make those changes?
Chair, shall I take that one again? So there are two potential scenarios here, because as I said, we're going to interview, and the current person incumbent that's doing the role will be ring-fenced for that interview under our HR policy and regulations. If they get the role, then I'm not quite sure the answer to your conversation is they've already had the input, they will continue to do so. If someone else gets it and comes in, takes over, yes, of course, people want to make their own stamp upon anything that they do. When you start a programme of work, you tend to and will have programme documentation. The lay of the land has already been set out in any programme that a programme manager comes in to take it up, depending on where it is in the programme. They are quite used to picking up the mantle of the scenario, the aims, the objectives, the funding, all the rest of it that goes with the programme, and running with it. That's usual programme management. So someone coming in, I would expect them to have experience of picking up a programme that's already in flight and being able to run with it. Otherwise, we would not be employing them, because they wouldn't be a very good programme manager. So they'll be used to doing so, and they would pick up, therefore, the aims and the objectives and the principles and all the things that have already been laid down. Now, that's not to say that any programme manager then doesn't have the decision-making abilities within a programme. The current incumbent would continue to have those. A new incumbent, if there is one, would also do so. There are many decisions that happen all the time in programmes as you steer it towards the aims and the objectives that are overall and set down, many twists and turns, and they would have those decision-making abilities as any programme manager has. For example, when we were laying out the Civic Hub at this moment in time, the programme manager was laying out where the hot desks would be, where the agile working environment, collaborative zones would be, how the building would be run with other colleagues as well. So those were decisions that programme manager was making, the current incumbent. There will be other decisions going forward, which the new incumbent, if there is one, would also be making. So they would have full delegation of powers under programme management, normal responsibilities.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate what you said, but it sounds like a lot of that work that we're asking this new person to do is work that should already have been done before we pass the accommodation strategy. So I come back to the original concern as to, I appreciate the logistical reasons why we didn't have such a person in place before passing the accommodation strategy, but the fact that we didn't have such a person in place for whatever reason, and we're now approaching that person now, does that not mean that some of these strategies have been passed prematurely, and really we should have waited in order to get somebody in place so that they could properly design those strategies. I mean, I'm looking at part of the job description is to help design the ancillary services. Well, really, those should really we should really have known what we were doing with that before passing the accommodation strategy. So are we in doing this now, are we kind of shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted?
Well, the direct answer to that is no. In any programme of work, as you know, Councillor, you require programme managers to undertake the management of the work that goes forward when the strategy has been laid out. That's what this person will be doing. The present incumbent has been helping to, first of all, build the strategy, but also undertake the basic work, the foundation work that needs to be done. There is still plenty to be done, as I hope you would understand, in bringing the accommodation strategy into being. I think the word is decant the ancillary services, not design the ancillary services in the paper I'm just looking at this moment in time. There's a lot of work to be done in decanting. That's moving, of course, one from the current Civic into the new ones, as an example. So the accommodation strategy lays out the strategy. This is the implementation, or the continued implementation of that strategy.
Thank you. Just to pick up on what you said about decant, we don't actually know where these services are going to be. So would this person be responsible also for working out where these ancillary services are actually going to go? Will they contribute to that work, or will that continue to be done by somebody else? And if so, who?
I'm more than happy to answer that, Chair. I'm not quite sure that's relevant to this post, but let me answer it anyway, unless the Chair has an objection for me doing so.
It's just you might as well, Charlie, to be honest.
So this person will have input into that, because they will be continuing to develop the detailed requirements of the services that need to be decanted. And there's a lot of work still to be done on that. And we know the outline, as you know quite well, Councillor, from other committee meetings discussions. So they will be involved in that. But the actual selection of the place to which it goes, the options, is done by the Estates Department and Communities, and the actual selection will be done by the Accommodation Strategy Board, if necessary, with requirements to go back to Cabinet if needed.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we said right at the beginning, this has come to Chief Officer Employment Panel because if they got to the top end of the scale, it takes you over the 100,000. 3 years ago, it was just below the 100,000. It wouldn't have come here. But the recommendation is on page 8. That is requested to agree that the head of change and flexible futures be allocated to grade D1. Which has been what the assessment is from HR. Paul, you have your hand up.
Are we doing comments now, or are we just going to go to a vote?
Oh, I thought we had the comments, but still, if you'd like to add an additional comment.
I mean, I just want to make my position clear. I mean, there's two reasons that I don't support this, and I'm not going to support it. One, obviously, I don't agree with the accommodation strategy. I don't agree with the concept of moving out of the civic centre. I don't agree with decanting things. So that's a problem. The second thing is, I don't see how this gives us extra capacity. I think it just increases our cost base. We're not adding in, because we're likely to do it from internal people, any extra capacity or knowledge. We're just making it more expensive for ourselves. And so for those two reasons, I can't support this. And I'd like my vote against it when it comes to be recorded, please.
Stephen, you have your hand up again.
Yes, I did want to also make a comment, because obviously I was asking questions before. I mean, similarly, I also don't wish to support this appointment, this position. I mean, I think in general, I mean, we're the objective here is agile working. This seems to be the opposite of agile working. Doesn't seem to be an agile approach to just create an expensive new position, when we should be making, the whole point is to make ourselves more lean and free up resources to provide more services to residents. So I don't think you know, I don't think this is the correct approach. And also, you know, I do have long-standing concerns about the, as Councillor Osborne said, about the direction of travel in terms of the accommodation strategy and the ever increasing sums that are being spent on it. So I won't be supporting this this decision today, and I also would like my vote to be recorded, please.
Well, should we just move to the vote? There's no other hands up, although Stephen's still got his hand up there. But should we just move to the vote? If you wave at the screen, we can count numbers. So all those in favour of the report.
I'd like to record it as well, Chairman, please. Thank you.
All those against the report. There's 4 in favour and 3 against. We'll now move on to the next item. On. Thank you very much, Charlie, for coming along.
Thank you, Chair.
We now move to item 6 on the item 5 on the agenda, which is the exclusion of the press and public. So we haven't got any public on there, but Andre, can you take it offline?
Just before we go offline, can I just do the usual thing I do at this stage, which is to object to these things being done in private? I still can't believe we can't find a way of doing this without making it obvious who the person is, so there's much more transparency for the public as to what we're doing.
But this came in under localism, Matt, Paul, and because of the pension payments and everything else added together.
I don't see why we can't do it in public. But
Be quiet.
I'm sorry for actually having an opinion and caring about taxpayers' money. I know that's not.
But this isn't caring about. This is different, Paul. The legislation came in by Mr. Pickles to state that the reason is because of people ending up with multi-million-pound payouts. But we had this discussion at a full council meeting a few years ago, and the reason why we have it a Chief Officer Employment Panel. So as we're offline now anyway, we are offline.